Hello everyone, welcome to the ITLS Academy with me Kavita Yadav as a mentor and the training coordinator. Our today's lecture is on the topic licensing and registration under the topic implementation of food regulation. So today we'll be discussing how we can approach for the licensing of a particular food if we are going to start a business in food sector, then through which criteria we have to go through the licensing and registration of a particular shop and whatever the business we have to start with. Beginning with the lecture, let's see the introduction first. Under the Article 31 of FSS Act 2006, that is the Food Safety Standard Licensing Registration of the Food Business Regulation, 2009 lays down the licensing and registration conditions which are compulsory for any food business. Any person desirous to commence or carry on any food business shall make an application to grant of a license to the designated officer along with the fees. In case a license is not issued within 2 months from the date of making the completed application or his application is not rejected, the applicant may start his food business after expiry of the said period, and the provision of obtaining a license for carrying on any food business shall not apply to a petty retailer, hawker, itinerants, vendors, or a temporary stall holders, or small scale or cottage or such other industries relating to the food business or tiny food business operator, but they shall have a register themselves within the registering authority. So, licensing procedures have been unified under the FSS Act 2006 to be implemented by the Food Safety and Standard Authority, Food Safety Commissioner in the states, and the officers working under the commissioners. Common applications form the procedures have been laid down to bring out uniformity of the food standards in the country as mandated by the Food Safety and Standard Act. As we can say, as mandated by the act, a distinction has been introduced between the registration and the licensing. Means both the terms are different. Registration is the another process, and having a license in that particular business is an another topic. So cutoff limit of the registration and licensing have been proposed. Food subsectors which are currently under the control of the government of India have been retained and unified. In addition, sectors which have high potential for the food contamination and hazard have been brought under the central licensing. This includes food services establishment under the various organs of the government of the India and interstate operations of large food businesses. And also along with this, safety, sanitary and hygiene conditions have been laid down for registration licensing according to the potential of the food related hazards. So this was the beginning, this was the introduction about what is the licensing, why it is a requirement, why it is required, and how we can apply. So beginning with the procedure, the proposed procedure for registration of a food business. Okay, here is a simple procedure when you have to apply for the registration. If you want to open a food business of your own, you have to fill up application form, that is the form A, that is supposed to be cost of 100 rupees, and the application of registration and renewal of registration under Food Safety and Standard Act 2006, it comes under the section 31 and regulation 4 and 10. So the application form may consist of the kind of business, some of the details you have to fill in the details properly of your own, and you have to mention the kind of business, name of the applicants, designation or capacity, food identity, correspondence address, and various other things that is required for the application. Next is comes the processing of the application. Once you applied for the application, your application is being submitted and then it is processed further. Now what happens, either your application is granted or rejected, or registration certificate is to be issued, will be noticed to you by soon. Within 7 days of receipt application, you will be get a notice that either your form is rejected, or you have to issue, you will get the registration certificate, or there is a requirement for inspection that will be known to you within 7 days. After the inspection, if the notice comes for the inspection, sorry, after the inspection, the grant of the registration requires, and in due date within a 30 period, if no response come, then also the food business operator may start your business. So this was the procedure for applying the registration of the food business, and you have to fill the form and then wait for the response and then act accordingly. Next is the proposed procedure for grant of license to food business. Now what happens in this process, again you have to fill an application form. That is now this time you have to fill the application form B, that is the application for license, renewal of the license under Food Safety and Standard Act 2006, that comes under the section 31 regulation 5, 6 and 10. There in the application you have to mention again you kind of business you want to proceed, the name of the company, registered office address, your correspondence address, your full details. And application form may also consist of some of the questionnaires questionnaire section, that install capacity food product wise per day, and other relevant questions and details about you starting up the business. And along with that, the declaration form is also you have to submit, and the documents to be enclosed with the new application form for the license to state or central licensing authority should requires the form B, that is to be duly completed and signed by the proprietors and the partners of the authorized signatory. You have to give the blueprint or layout of the plan of the processing unit showing the dimensions in the meters, squares, meters, and the operation wise area allocation. You have to show the list of the directors with full address and the contact details, name and list of the equipments and the machineries along with the numbers, installed capacity and horsepower used. You have to submit the photo ID and address proof issued by the government authority to the that authorized signatory. You have to give the list of the food category desired to be manufactured, if in case of the manufacturers, authority letter with name, address of responsible person nominated by the manufacturer along with the alternative responsible person indicating the powers vested. And you have to also submit the analysis report, that is the chemical and bacteriological of the water to be used as ingredient in the food from the recognized public health laboratory to confirm the potability, indicating the name of the authorized representative lab, proof of possessions of premises, that is the sale deed, rent agreement, electricity bill, partnership deed, affidavit, memorandum, NOC from the manufacturer in case of laborers. And you also have to submit the documents of the food safety management system plan or certificate if any you have got. Then if suppose you are going to start with the milk industry, so source of the milk procurement plan for for milk including location of the milk collection centers. You have to show the source of raw materials for the meat and meat processing plant, and various of depends upon your business, that from which source, if you are starting with any of the business, then you have to predict which types of source you are getting the raw materials, and each and every descriptions that you are required for your startup business, you have to submit it with the documents. Then once you have completed the application, submitted the application form along with the documents, then a unique application number will be generated. And if it is required an additional information or incomplete application, then again you have to fill the additional requirement if the response comes from that office. If there is a requirement for the inspection of the premises after the receiving completed application and issue inspection report, then again the further process is carried out. If no response, no inspection is required, then the FBO may start the business after 60 days. Either grant or reject the license within 60 days of the receipt or completed application, or within 30 days of inspection. If no inspection report not processed, then also you can start your business within the after the 60 days. So if your somehow application is cancelled, or suspension or improvement notice is arrived to you, then again you have to fill the fresh application form after the 90 days. So here are the procedures, and I have told about you what are the documents that is to be submitted if you are applying for the registration, or gaining want to have a license from the government. Then you have to follow the same procedures. Next comes to the introduction of the unified licensing and registration under the FSSA. Now what happens, all the food business operators in this country shall be either registered or licensed under the regulation, licensing and registration regulation. So registration will be under the State Food Safety Authority. However, licensing for the major food business operator and for sectors which are prone to contamination shall remain under the central licensing. A single license for one or more articles of the food and for different establishment or premises in the same area, and mandatory safety, sanitary and hygienic conditions are laid down under the Schedule 4 for both the registered and the licensed operator on the basis of the potential of the food related hazards. Pre-inspection of the premises shall be mandatory for license applicant, which may be followed by the improvement notice if so required before the granting of the license. A regular inspection of premises for enforcing compliance towards food safety shall be done for both the registered and the licensed. For new license applicants, the term will be for 1 to 5 years and will be renewed afterwards within 1 month before the expiry. And the existing registration and license holders under various orders and act, the regulations comes into the force, shall inform the license registration authority through the application upon expiry of the validity of the existing registration and the license. However, the food business operator holding the registration and license under any act or order without any specific validity or expiry date shall have to apply and obtain a registration license by paying applicable fees within 1 year from date of notification of this regulation. Next is your registration required for the food business operator who manufactures or sells any article of the food himself, or a petty retailer, hawker, itinerant vendors, temporary stall holders, and it is required for those such food business including small scales or cottage or tiny food business with an annual turnover not exceeding to 12 lakhs, and also for those have the production capacity of the food other than the milk and milk product and meat product does not exceed 100 kg per liter per day, and also for those whose production and procurement or collection of the milk is up to 100 liters of milk per day, and lastly the slaughtering capacity is 2 large animals and 10 small animals or 50 poultry birds per day or less than that. Next is the licenses to be granted by the Central Licensing Authority Schedule 1. According to this, the schedule authority schedule 1 generally grant the license to those uh, whose for example the dairy unit including the milk chilling unit equipped to handle or process more than 50,000 liters of the liquid milk per day, or we can say 2,500 million tons of the milk solid per annum. Next is the license granted to the vegetable oil processing units and the unit producing vegetable oil by the process of the solvent extraction, and refineries including oil expellers unit having the installed capacity more than 2 million ton per day. It is also grant the license to the all slaughters house equipped to slaughters more than 50 large animals or 150 or more small animals including the sheep, goats or 10,000 1,000 or more poultry birds per day. Meat processing units equipped to handle or process more than 500 kg of meal per day or 150 million ton per annum. Next is the all food processing units other than that mentioned under the above I have told you, including the relabelers and repackers having installed capacity more than 2 million tons per day, except the grains, cereals and the pulse milling units. 100% export oriented units, all importers importing food items for commercial use. Next is granted for all food business operators manufacturing any article of the food which does not fall under any of the food categories prescribed under the regulation or deviates in any way from the prescribed specification for additives therein. Next is the retail chain operating in 3 or more states. Lastly, the food catering services established and units under the central government agencies like railways, airports, and seaports, defense, etc. Next is your state licensing authority. Now, here the license for commencing or carrying on food business, which not covered under the Schedule 1, that is that I have discussed about the various types of food business in the Schedule 1 in the previous slide, that is to which the license is granted. State license authority is given to those who cannot come under that Schedule 1 category and shall be granted by the concerned state license authority. So license of the food business, that is existing license granted and under different food orders, subject to the regulation 4, that no person shall commence any food business unless it possesses a valid license under these regulations, provided that any person or food business operator carrying on food business on the date of notification of these regulations under a license or a registration or permission as the case may be, or under the act or order mentioned in the second schedule of the act, shall get their existing license registration converted into the license registration under this regulation following an application made by the food business operator to the licensing or registering authority on the expiry of the period for which such registration license is valid. No license fee will be have to paid for the remaining period of the validity of the earlier license or registration granted under any of the said act or order. No compliance with this provision of the food business operator will attract penalty under the section 55 of the act. Also provided further that any food business operator holding registration license under any act as specified under the Schedule 2 of the FSS Act 2006 with no specific validity or expiry date and otherwise entitled to the obtained a license under these regulations shall have to apply and obtain a registration under these regulations within 1 year from the date of notification by paying the application fees. Notwithstanding the provision contained in section 5.1 above or in any of the registration of the license certificate issued under existing act or order mentioned in the second schedule of the act, the licensing authority, if it has reason to believe that the food business operator has failed to comply with all or some of the conditions of the existing registration or license of the safety business requirement given in the Schedule 4, may give appropriate direction to the food business operator to comply with. License for commencing or carrying on food business which falls under the Schedule 1 shall be granted by the Central Licensing Authority. For food business operator importing any type of food items shall have to obtain a license from the Central Licensing Authority in addition to the license taken as per the regulation herein for any other food business and he may be engaged in. So provided that food authority may through notification may make such changes considered necessary or modify the list given in the Schedule 1. Next comes your the condition of the license. Okay, all food business operators shall ensure that the following conditions are complied with, that all times during the course of its food business. So food business operator shall display a true copy of license granted in Form C, shall at all times at a prominent place in the premises. Next, give a necessary access to the licensing authorities or the other authorized personnel to the premises. Inform authorities about any change or modification in activities. Employ at least uh, one technical person to supervise the production process. The person supervising the production process shall possess at least a degree in science with the chemistry, biochemistry, food, nutrition, microbiology, or degree or diploma in food technology, dairy product microbiology, dairy chemistry, dairy engineering, oil technology, veterinary science, hotel management, catering technology, or any degree or diploma in any other discipline related to the specific requirement of the business from the recognized university or institute or equivalent. Furnish periodic annual term, that is from the 1st April to the 31st of the March. Ensures that no product other than the product indicated in the license or registration is produced in the unit. Maintain factory and workers' hygiene as specified in the Schedule 4. Maintain daily records of the production, raw material, utilization, and sales in separate register, whichever is applicable. Ensures that the source and standards of the raw material used are of optimum quality. Food business operator shall not manufacture, store, or expose for sale or permit that sale of any article of the food in any premises not effectively separated to the satisfaction of the licensing authority from any privy, urinary, sewage, drain, or place of the storage of foul and waste matter. Ensure clean in place system wherever it is necessary for regular cleaning of the machines and equipments. Ensure testing of all the chemicals and microbiological contaminants in the food products through own or any recognized lab at least once in a month. Ensures that the required temperature is maintained throughout the supply chain from the place of the procurement or sourcing till it reaches the end consumer, including the chilling, transportation, storage, and etc. So thank you for being with us. I hope you have understood and gone through all the procedures and documents that is required for applying any licensing and registration for starting up any food business. For more information, please log on to our website www.idlsacademy.com and register yourself. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and yes, do not forget to subscribe our channel ITLS Academy at YouTube. Thank you.